Ladies and gentlemen, up next we have a power panel on aligning and preparing business stakeholders for GenAI. Allow me to invite on stage Mr. Anoop Mathur, founder, CXO Capital, the moderator for the session, and of course our panelists, Mr. Mayank Bhargava, Group CIO Emaar, Ramandeep Singh Virdi, CIO MENA, Kuwait Food Company, and Veneeth Purushotaman, Group CIO Aster DM Healthcare on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the gentlemen on stage.
Excellent. So, firstly, a very warm welcome, Veneeth, Raman, and Mayank. Thanks a lot for being here on the panel. As you know, the theme is around GenAI, and while, of course, one of the easiest form has been ChatGPT, but I think the minute you take GenAI, harness the power and leverage it for business or enterprise, then clearly you need to get your stakeholders engaged in that. You need the buy-in, the pros and cons, and like I mentioned earlier, right, the threat landscape continues to increase. And with that, it also means that you leaders need to make sure how you ring fence it, but also leveraging the technology, right? So why don't we start with you, Mayank? Now, of course, Emaar really doesn't need any introduction, right? Diversified portfolio, residential, commercial, retail, right? Across the board, luxury lifestyle. But we'd like to know, Mayank, in your role as a group CIO, how are you positioning the value proposition of leveraging GenAI effectively with your stakeholders, ensuring that it aligns with Emaar's long-term vision and goals?
See, I think one of the key things that Emaar stands for is delivering the best for the customers, right? So it's all about customer excellence. So for delivering this customer excellence with efficiency and, of course, not just efficiency in terms of time, but in terms of money as well, everything that we kind of look at is around focusing on the customer first. So if there are things that we could be doing for our customers, leveraging GenAI or any other such technology, that is of interest, and that is something which kind of gets experimented, then kind of brought into the overall processes, and then deployed at scale. So there are different instances, there are different attempts, models that have been tried, experimented, and some of them are live as well. Some of them were the pioneering attempts in the region when GenAI was kind of just trying to find its foothold in the overall setup. But I think one of the clear things that goes in is establishing a very clear goal, and this is what we want to achieve. Because otherwise, when you try, going ahead with a particular project, initiative, you could be all over the place, and eventually you will feel that it has not delivered anything. So once that clear goal is established, then ensuring that all the relevant stakeholders are onboarded, from the business teams, from the technology side. Business teams would, of course, involve multiple stakeholders within that setup itself, to be brought fully on board. This is what is being attempted. This is what we expect. This is where we'll need support, and some of the things are still experimental. Along the journey comes in the customers for whom this is actually being done. Because finally, if some of the things are not really being adopted by the customers, or not being welcomed by the customers, or not being really appreciated by the customers, then of course that kind of goes into a feedback loop on how do we actually make that better. But once some of these things are set in motion, then it kind of gets into a flywheel effect, and then you look at how do we take some of these things in motion for the rest of the setups as well. And once you spoke about the businesses that Emaar is in, you missed out on two of those key elements. One is hospitality and entertainment. Both of these where there's a much higher retail element coming into play, and thereafter of course the chances of adoption and the usage of the metrics that are going to be there for any such technology, including GenAI, plays a very significant role. And that's how it actually happened over the last 12 months or so, 12 to 15 months. And there are more things which are in the making around leveraging GenAI, now moving away from the customer side, also embedding it in our internal processes, be it our HR processes, be it our finance processes, to get more value for the customers or for the employees who are actually servicing those customers, or for the employees who are servicing those employees who are servicing those customers, right? So essentially, it all boils down to how do we go ahead and then deliver the best of the things that we can do for the customers.
Excellent. So Mayank, what I hear is, as long as there is a business case, there is business growth involved, and clearly it's all about customer experience, there are no reservations, right?
Quite true. Quite true. Yeah.
Right,
But of course, there are certain guardrails that goes into play around the data privacy, data governance, and so on and so forth.
Sure.
It may not necessarily even have a very strong ROI associated with it. But yes, if it makes things better for our customers, we believe that that's the right thing to do.
But that's indirect ROI. Yeah, at some point it will pay back.
Yes, at some point it would pay off.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for that. Raman, coming to you. Now, of course, Kuwait Food Company is one of the largest food companies in the Middle East and is known for commitment to quality, innovation, customer satisfaction. So basically one of the largest QSRs, right? Now, given the potential concerns, right, around AI transforming the workspace, especially in the QSR industry, as a leader, what do you recommend is the best way to look at building trust and buy-in from stakeholders for GenAI initiatives?
Yeah, thank you, Anoop. I think trust is a big word, and I think a lot of the CIOs and all the tech partners struggle to ensure that their business leaders and their stakeholders trust their initiatives, and I think that's a big one. So I think fundamentally what has worked for us and which we will continue to drive for all tech initiatives and I would say for the GenAI also is that we ensure there's a clear transparency around everything. You see what the initiative is about. It's not our business leaders, our stakeholders will not trust us unless they don't understand what is really happening. So to me, the big word is transparency. If I take any initiative, say for customer service, which we have done, where's the data coming from? How the data is being used? What does it mean? If there is a output which has been given out, is that well understood? Because if they are not able to really get to the bottom of it, they will not use this technology for driving their business decisions or for any other engagement. So fundamentally, to me, the key driver remains first is to make sure there's total transparency around it, and I think the second big point is that it has, and I think what Mayank was talking about also, is has a clear deliverable. There is a clear end goal also. This is what it's not an open-ended engagement. These objectives were achieved. So it's not a journey which is forever. Of course, technology does continue, but there is a tangible output and a result which was given. And I think if they see that progress and they understand how that progress was achieved and they trust the results, I think then they know where the results are coming from. I think then we do believe that the trust can be enabled for our tech initiatives, including for ChatGPT or similar AI initiatives.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Raman. And I think transparency, what you mentioned is so key, right? Because as long as you keep everybody involved and, it's very open about here are the pros and cons and this is what we expect, I think then, of course, while everything is a journey, at the end of the day, but as long as everybody's informed and, buys in, I think that's what matters. But thanks a lot for that, Raman. Veneeth, coming to you. Again, Aster doesn't need any introduction, right? At least in the context of Middle East, but as a leading healthcare conglomerate, footprint across multiple countries. Now, tell us, given some of the potential reservations, that come from business stakeholders regarding integration of AI in healthcare specifically, as a leader, how do you believe one can effectively address the concerns of the stakeholders and again build trust in the responsible use of GenAI? Because when it comes to healthcare, hospital, none of the Six Sigma principles work, because it's life, right, straight away. So the entire economics change over there. So.
Yeah, thank you. I must start off by saying that unlike many of the other technologies, when it comes about, particularly when it talk about new gen technologies and GenAI and ChatGPT, there are various names to this, right? So when this particular flavor of technology or technology is concerned, the CIOs are at the receiving end. All the rest of the people know more about this than you. So that's where it starts off. Therefore, most of the time we are trying to set expectations, but telling them, right, it's a bit of a hype. Can you just hold your horses before you jump into saying that I want this? So most of us, I'm sure, are in that phase, right? This is not one of those technologies saying we going out and saying this is we should do, we should implement. Here it's why can't we implement this? Veneeth, why don't you try this? Veneeth, why are we not in the Gen AI space? Why are we not using ChatGPT for help desk and so on? So that's one part. So therefore, our role is a bit different as CIOs, more like holding horses. And therefore, I see while transparency and trust is one, there's a big role of setting the right expectations. And you're right. When it comes to healthcare, unlike any other industry, it's a very different situation. I keep saying, I say this to all the partners who keep coming and telling me there is something that I have for healthcare, that there's no space for a false positive or a false negative when it comes to healthcare. So therefore we tread carefully. But I don't think it's not just healthcare. It's almost all of us are treading very carefully when it comes to this. Recently what I did was, because of this thing, recently I did a session for the leadership. And I didn't try to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of stuff out there, documents, whether it's Gartner with the various other materials, through which I tried to put together one kind of a framework for people to decide if you want to do it. Because in very simple words, not going into detail, there is a very simple way of doing it. There is a lot of Gen AI solutions which fall in the everyday category, and there is a lot that falls in the game-changing or future category. It's for the business, it's for the CIOs or the tech leaders to work with the businesses and get them into some kind of a discussion. Because if you leave them alone, you're going to be in so much of trouble trying to clean up the things later on. So I believe that's where we are.
So Veneeth, further on, can you share some insights on fostering collaboration between IT, which is your teams, doctors and administrators during AI, Gen AI implementation in healthcare, considering the critical importance of cross-functional alignment in any new strategy implementation? Because, with every other organization, you're talking about, business verticals, but here the minute you have doctors, it's a completely different challenge or, issue that you're dealing with. So we'd like to get your perspective on that.
So I hear my doctor colleagues talk about, even before Gen AI, Google itself was a problem because most of the patients would come to them after doing a lot of Google. So the doctors, when it comes to doctors and using technology like this, they are okay to accepting it to the point that it is a second opinion. As long as it's a nudge, they're fine. As long as it's something that supports them and the decision is finally left to them, they're game. That's what I've seen so far. And that's where I've seen it in India as well as here, is that we can try, and they are keen most as we come across more and more doctors who are the Gen age that are okay to take this technology. It's not been a difficult thing. But I won't just categorize doctors, Anoop. For me, most of the business leaders, except for the people who are just operations, and for that part of the industry, that part of the department is very similar from any other industry. There are certain customer experience aspects, there are certain TATs, and you can bring in technology and Gen AI and help them, they are game. They are happy to adopt it. But for the clinical team, we have tried solutions, started off with proof of concepts, involved them from day one, not waiting for the UATs. Typically, that's what we do, bring users when the user acceptance does start, but we started from the beginning and have been able to use. We now have, one of my team has already done some bit of work for example, the entire emergency triaging has got a ChatGPT enabled process. Nothing decided, but nudges coming up based on the history, based on the patterns, it comes up. So that's what a couple of things that we tried so far.
Thanks for that. Veneeth, Raman, coming back to you. Now, given your experience, can you share some insights into some of the essential considerations a business leader should prioritize when building classical AI and Gen AI models, especially for the food chain companies, ensuring both innovation and, of course, ethical responsibility?
Yeah, so I think, So for food, within the food industry, I think the big factor, I think the framework remains the same across all practical industries. Anyway, any consideration for building up or investing in new technology, I think, is driven by the same principles as any other project also, and the same has happened with GenAI. One part which has actually worked in our favor here, it seems to be there's a lot of support from our end users because they love this, because this is helping them make things easier. You know, it writes mails for you. We've tried recently Copilot, which was released by Microsoft some time back, and I just really like that how quickly the users are adapting, because this is something which makes your job easier. It helps, you know, ChatGPT helps you write mails. The Copilot actually summarizes your meets. So in this component, I think the resistance is not that much. And but the consideration which we usually make for any initiative where we would like to invest and which we would like to push is, of course, same clear returns on the investments. That okay, is this going to get us somewhere? Is this initiative going to give us the return what we want? Are there clear objectives defined for the success of this initiatives? That okay, fair. You will create an ecosystem through which you will get in, say, maybe data insights, or you can ask queries using you know, general language, but is this something which will help really drive a business decision? Will it move the threshold? Is it something which will help me drive decisions much more quickly or efficiently? And in our business, we are in the food sector, though, and we are a quick service restaurant. We are highly data-driven. We operate across 12 countries, multiple brands. And there is a huge amount of diversity associated with the kind of business decisions being taken. Of course, they are common decisions, but each of the brand has a different priorities. They're trying to, some brands are pushing towards more indulgence, while the other brand is pushing, say, maybe they want to promote a certain product. So is this platform being able to only justify a set of needs for a specific segment, or will it be able to be generalized use across all? So, and I think that stands true for a lot of the other common ecosystems which we implement. What I would say, again, clear business objectives, tangible business objectives which are there, and then of course a lot of transparency on how would you get there and would you be able to deliver on your initiatives while you build those models.
Thanks, Raman. Mayank, I'd like to bring the same question to you, but obviously given Emaar's multi-organizational structure and unique business needs, can you share insights into the essential considerations for building classical AI and generative AI models? Because we did get a perspective from Raman, which was more around QSR and food chain, but as a diversified group, we'd like to get your inputs.
Yeah, see, I think some of the basic tenets still remain the same, and I think Ramandeep also kind of alluded to that. And it starts from, building that trust on whatever that is being done on using these models. And there are multiple models which are available in the market. You don't want to really kind of go in and start building your own. So you would want to adopt one of those and see how best that can be embedded in your own setup. In that space, how do you generate that trust essentially for the, the internal users itself? That they would say that this is good enough to go out in the market where people would use it. And as Veneeth was alluding to, that when you are looking at it from a healthcare standpoint, there are different kind of sensitivities, and doctors may not necessarily be completely aligned with it. The same thing could be there for let's say a properties or a communities management setup as well. That while some of these responses are being provided, they may not necessarily be echoing exactly what a user would have conveyed. So it takes a while before it'll get to that stage that your AI models are responding exactly the way you would want them to be. So it kind of goes in that is it taking care of maybe 80% of my responses, or are the responses good enough to go out? And in case if there is something which is not worthy, I have a mechanism by which it can be flagged back for us to improve. And then you kind of again work on that feedback loop to see how do we make it better. The idea remains, or one of the guiding principle remains, which are the kind of task or the transactions or the responses which come in the most frequently, right? can I pick those ones and see if I can standardize that response which is going out from my end? Can I have that response go out in a more efficient manner? Can I look at working or doing those integrations amongst those platforms which would help me get that response to the end user, be it an internal employee or be it a customer, in a manner which is going to be less tedious, from the person who was servicing that information earlier. And yes, if that kind of works, then you look at, okay, this is working fine. Do I continue to expand upon it, or do I move to something else? And then you kind of leverage that knowledge or that information or the skills that has been built as a transferable skill for a completely different use case, from an external standpoint, but you would bring in whatever knowledge, information that could be used for taking something from the property side, maybe on the hospitality side. From the hospitality side, maybe on the entertainment side, or something from the entertainment side, maybe to the luxury retail side. So that internal cross-pollination kind of happens with looking at what that learning has been during the implementation of that use case, cross-pollinating it amongst the leadership and the teams, socializing it, with the rest of the, stakeholders who are there, and telling them these are the benefits that have come in, and this is something that could be, there for you. So while it remains centrally managed from a technology standpoint, but all of these are different business units. All of them kind of look at that same problem from a very different perspective, and they want to determine what's in it for me. If that part is not getting determined or established very clearly, it might be a great idea, but it will not find any merit, right? So that's something which kind of goes in as an interplay amongst the use cases, the stakeholders, the learning, to determine what could be the right thing to be done.
So, Mayank, to allude further, what in your view is then the best way to navigate this challenge, of seamless AI integration across cross-functional teams?
So I think the biggest one is actually biggest ones, I'll put across two of them. One is something that I spoke about earlier, establishing what clearly you want to, achieve out of it. Till the time that part is not there, it is going to be difficult to get any kind of a value. And Veneeth mentioned about it, that here, when it comes to GenAI, I think the users are actually bringing those problem statements or use cases and saying that, why don't we do this as well? And you need to set those expectations right, because if you don't do it, eventually whatever will come out, people would not like it. Because what they compare it is against some of those highly trained models before they've been let out in the market. But here we are looking at creating something and making it available for our internal employees or for the customers. So that's first, right? Second is the stakeholder education and that alignment, right? Somewhere maybe kind of also mixing up with the expectation setting. Getting all of this part done, that this is what we would be able to do. This is how we should possibly start, and ensure that finally everybody comes onto the same page before we set out, in the motion. Yet, we need to be conscious and cognizant that it should not get caught up in an endless loop of analysis and paralysis, and you're sitting by the seashore and not really venturing out at all, right? So you need to take some of those initial steps, or you need to kind of get the boat out in the ocean, even with something small, realistic, and then ensure that you kind of keep harvesting on the feedback loop and continue to move forward.
Sure. Thanks for that, Mayank. Raman, coming to you, tell us in your view, what are some of the challenges that organizations in your space face in ensuring responsible data collection, management, and security? And of course, how are some of these challenges impacting the process of building GenAI models?
So I think again, so it comes back a lot to our organization, which is because it operates across multiple countries. So operating across 12 countries, you have to be absolutely aligned to the law of the land. So in terms of data protection policies around, because we are a B2C company, there we also store customer data. So that's one of the primary challenges which I'm sure that any B2C company would face. And they are, in a lot of the countries, the customer data protection laws are changing and adapting. So there is something which we need to be very conscious about. And we try to make sure that that data inputs which come in are compliant to it, and of course are stored and managed in that manner which is compliant to that requirement. The other component is when we use these data feeds and our customer data to create these models which will be used, we want that knowledge to remain within the organization and not be something which is available publicly, and because that's proprietary to the organization and it drives the competitive advantage which the organization has. So today, if you take the QSR segment, we are the largest QSR operator. So the insights in terms of understanding how say the customer profile or the customer engagement happens across this segment of our business across 12 countries, those kind of insights are not available anyway. So we need to ensure that those insights are well protected and are only available within the organization and can be used only by the organization. And that's why there is a very strong representation how any engagement where we are using these data feeds are well protected by our security teams. I think the third most challenges in a lot of the environments, a lot of the data is on, say, for customer, because sales data, of course, we get from our system. But if you want deeper insights to, say, third-party data or second-party data, where you want to augment to build more intelligence into your modeling, those data points are not that easily available as they might be available in a developed country. So within the Middle East region, sometimes that is a big struggle for us to be able to generate qualitative data which can be used to create and ingest into the modeling which can help drive decision. I'll give you an example which we use. So we have about 2,500 restaurants. We build about 300 new restaurants every year. Now, locational data to be able to understand, where should a new restaurant should come up, where is the demand. We can look at our competitors, we can look at other profile data, we can look at a lot of third-party data to understand these are the areas which are opportunity areas, and it would really help if there is an intelligent model which is looking at, say, real-time scenarios and trying to tell you, okay, these are great opportunity areas and this is where you should go to. But to be able to retrieve that data, to be able to store it and bring it back across multiple countries is indeed a challenge, and then to turn it into a GenAI model which will help drive insights is again one more threshold over it. But it's an evolving environment, and I think as we have seen across the years, it is getting definitely better, and we do hope that at some stage this would become as seamless as it is probably in a more developed country.
And lastly, coming to you, Veneeth. Now, of course, considering the sensitive nature of healthcare data, what challenges arise in maintaining data governance during AI implementation, and what strategies can be employed to uphold data quality and privacy standards?
So that's one of the reasons why AI models and AI experiments are a bit slow when it comes to healthcare, because it's very simple. The data cannot go outside the geography. That's most of the regulators, most of the governments do that. Even within the geographical limits, you definitely want to protect your patient data as an organization, as Aster. So you have to do all those guardrails, put all those in place, and it's a waterproof guardrail. There's no question of anything going out. But then there is still a lot that can be done because the patient identifiable information versus the patient's health record, the two different categories in which you classify data. Patient identifiable information is just like any information like you have in a restaurant or in a construction, wherever, it's the same. Health record is what becomes very, very specific. But therefore, what most of us, when you working on GenAI models and the algorithms and logics, we work on the common things like symptoms, and there are standards as to if this is the symptom, this is the kind of disease, and if this disease, this is the kind of medication. Those are all standard. Those are not proprietary, nor those are patient-centric and individual-centric. So there is a lot that can be done in that, and that's where there's a lot of opportunity as well. That's one segment. Another segment where there's a lot of work happening is around artificial AI in imaging. There are a lot of very common use cases. Aster, we could we have applied for 2 patents in India for similarly imaging. Because images are a pattern, and when a doctor sees an image and there are certain patterns, if there's a patch there, that patch means something. Most of the time, the radiologists and the doctors are spending 80% of the time going through images and clearing them, whereas that could be done by a logic. So there are many of these use cases. There is a lot of work happening on putting the right policies as well, Anoop. So on the responsible AI, I know most of us are in various forums having conversations on this subject. So there's a lot of work happening and putting policies. But we all know policies are only going to be giving you some ways and some guidelines, but you still have to, as organizations and as individuals, be ethically correct and be responsible when you deal with systems like this. One thing I thought, because when you asked the question previously to both of them, I believe if you want to start off with something, because in this when it comes to this particular kind of technology we're talking about, because you're trying things, it's first better to try it internal. So in this everyday and the game changing, I said there's a lot that you can try internal. So for instance, if you're trying a co-pilot, if you're trying a mix of RPA and intelligence into something, it's easier to try it internal, because worst case, only your own people are getting impacted. You need to be very, very careful before you go out to your customers, because that is where you have to be very, very sure about. I wouldn't even try that, because in my case, it's a different discussion. But other industries, at least even if you want to try, I would first say try out internal and then step external.
Thanks a lot for that, Veneeth. We've run out of time, but thanks a lot, gents, for all your insights. Veneeth, Raman, and Mayank are here with us through the evening, so if you still want to exchange notes, ask them what they're doing. You want to share, like I said, there's a lot about peer-to-peer collaboration, right? And at the end of the day, that's how you build the invaluable network. But thanks a lot, gents, for your time, and really appreciate it.
I can see there are a lot of other, I can see Christians sitting there. There are many of them who are much better than us in terms of GenAI. We'll get something from. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let's have a round